Jason, without even welcoming you to the show or setting you up. Give me the one floor elevator pitch for Spear and Clover.
Yeah, so Spear and Clover, particularly our program for entrepreneurs called Dynasty Defined, is really all about.
I'm sorry, dude, but you're gonna have to pump your volume up a little more.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
You just have that really nice, calm, soothing voice, but it's not,
It's interesting because it's like blowing me up over here.
Yeah, but I'm showing here. You know what? I even have.
Yeah, I can see it on my side. It's not clipping. Yeah. It's not getting into red.
Yeah.
And by the way, I hope this makes it. See, I'm clipping there. I hope this gets into the podcast. This is good stuff. If you're wondering what happens behind the scenes on podcasting, this is a little bit of great.
Unless you're gonna all of a sudden shift into like shout mode.
If I do, I'll push the microphone away a little bit.
Push it away.
Yeah, that's great. Keep me honest on that.
I will. So give me the one floor elevator pitch on Spear and Clover. Here we
go. So basically the folks that I like to call them magicians. These are people who have been breaking down walls to get from nothing to the business that they currently have. They have magic between their ears. They knock down brick walls, and they maybe struggle to get to the next level, to get through that next brick wall from point 1 to point 2. And so what I try to help them understand is that it's not magic that's between their ears. And in fact, if we take the time, slow down just a little bit, ask each other the right questions, we can scale that magic into science, scale it to a team, and make a much bigger impact on the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's already inspiring when you say I call them magicians.
Yeah.
I like that because I think that we're maybe getting to a place where we don't necessarily believe in magic anymore. Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry's seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about.
Yes.
Your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hersh Rephun.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
My guest today is Jason Skeesick. Now, Jason has a coaching brand, a community brand called Spear and Clover, and we will get into where that name comes from. I love it. Jason's a U.S. Army veteran. He's a father, a husband, a fighter, a carrier of heavy things, he describes himself, which I also love. So are you coaching them one-on-one? Is that the model?
Yeah, so I take a 3-phase approach. So we have an information product where they will consume some videos that give them concepts and ask them questions. They'll do some worksheets, and then we actually do it in a cohort model where I bring a group of 6 entrepreneurs together and I coach them as well as we work together in kind of a mastermind type setting. And so that is what I've found to be the best way, because for me, I'm a community guy, I'm a tribe guy. I've owned a CrossFit gym for 12 years, if you don't know. And so because of that, I've seen so much come out of the dialectic, out of people helping each other to solve problems, not just some guru sitting on top of a mountain telling you this is how you should do it, but somebody asking insightful questions and helping with experience share of what they've done to solve similar problems in the past.
So first of all, thank you, Jason, for being on Yes Brand.
Well, for starters, thank you for having me and giving me the platform.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I really enjoy talking to you, Hersh. I don't know if people tell you that often, but I do.
I do too. I enjoy talking to you.
And so I think it would be maybe beneficial for me to explain a little bit about how I view marketing, because I have a friend who's also a marketer. His name's Will Taylor. He's a very interesting and inspiring guy. We're like brothers from another mother, met in a different mastermind. And he visited me one day, and I live here in the Indiana Dunes National Park. And so for that day, here's what we did. We went to jiu-jitsu class. We broke bread. We had a great lunch together. We put heavy backpacks on, and we walked through the dunes for about 5 hours. We walked about 12 miles. We had a log, and if I got too tired, he would carry the log. If he got too tired, I would carry the log. We had our 2 Australian Shepherd dogs with us that were having the time of their life, running out into the woods, playing around and coming and checking on us periodically. I think we did about 9 miles that day, and the dogs probably did 20. And at the end of that day, we were sitting on the beach. We live here in Indiana Dunes National Park, right on the shore of Lake Michigan. So there's some beach. We're sitting on the beach, leaning up against this log that we had carried for 9 miles. And I looked over at him. I said, this is what marketing is supposed to be, is showing people what it might feel like to be sitting here, sharing a conversation, soaking wet with sweat and surf and sand, and them not having to have actually carried the log the whole day. And so for me, the lifestyle that I live informs what the brand is. And so it would be disingenuous of me to create a brand that I didn't live and to espouse philosophies that I wouldn't espouse myself. And so where Spear and Clover has its power is the fact that it was created as a personal core values symbol to symbolize me at my best years before I ever named a company or a podcast after it. And so Spear and Clover helps those folks who have a big, hairy mission that want to make an impact on the world, but they also take time. So they have a big, strong mission and a goal, but they also take time to enjoy life now. They're learning new things. They're trying new things. They're leading with curiosity and friendship and love, but they're also military mindset, hard charging towards those goals. And so that's what the Spear and Clover symbol roughly stands for. And at its best, that's who I serve. That's the folks that I serve is that maybe have a big, hairy goal and just don't know how to get to the next level. And so we help them to do that.
This is something that also is going to come up a lot, I think, on this podcast, because I had a conversation yesterday with a life coach, and I talked to a lot of life coaches. This wasn't on air. This was just a friend to friend, getting to know somebody. But it was funny how she was saying, well, my coach said to me, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, so you have a coach too, obviously. And she's like, yeah, I can't see how anyone who coaches anybody could not have a coach, or how a therapist who gives therapy to someone wouldn't have a therapist. It's like, if we believe in this, if we believe in the idea of coaching, somebody's got to be helping us, right? Otherwise, it would be like, oh, it's good enough for you, it's not good enough for me. I don't need a coach. I'm elevated and actualized. You need a coach. My client needs a coach, but I don't need, And then she had asked me, have I considered coaching, and have I thought about coaching, because it seems like what I do in a way is coach clients toward their message. And so I think this whole universe of coaching is a journey that I hope my listeners will take with me, because I'm also kind of new on this journey of seeking, almost a rabbi, if you will, seeking a rabbi for your dreams, seeking, and you can have as many people in your life as you want. I don't suspect that you have an exclusive, not an exclusion option where it's like, if you're going to work with the Spear and Clover, you cannot have other, nobody who would have that. So
nobody.
But I'm warming up really to this whole idea of what someone in your life who brings accountability into the conversation, and in your case, who brings community, friendship. Tell me how that works when you're balancing a real hairy objective and bonding time, personal time, enjoyment, all that stuff. How do you guide somebody through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the first things that we do, and this is available for free on our website, spearandclover.com, is we put people through what I call a 30-day Spear and Clover challenge. And what that challenge is it's designed as an entrepreneurial reset. And so one of the things we do is we look at our life like a 3-chambered heart. We have our professional and our career. We have our personal and self, and then we have our family and social. And so we try to balance those things, because if I just put all the blood in that heart in one or the other of those areas, the other two will suffer. But by filling up evenly all of them, then we can grow that heart overall. And so a great example of that would be I schedule my week, and I'm not a particularly type A person, but I do want to live what I would call a perfect week. It's literally called my perfect week. And so my perfect week starts not with when I'm working. It starts with my non-negotiables, with my family, with my personal self-care like fitness, and with my social stuff. I have time set aside on my calendar for all 3 of those things. And then I reverse engineer my work schedule into it. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, I have a little bit more flexibility there than most, but I would challenge you, if you understood exactly what you want your lifestyle to be on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, that over the course of time, if you only take steps in that direction, you very quickly will have the life of your dreams. And I just mean what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the lifestyle.
Exactly.
The lifestyle and the life organization of your dreams. You know, we discipline ourselves for different things, and I think we don't even realize that we're disciplining ourselves for our families as well.
Yeah.
But you know, we just kind of go about it and do it and pack up the car and do this thing and take the kid this. But you know, we're like doing those things, but it requires discipline. It requires organization. How does the calendar look? What kind of things? Maybe you mentioned the activities, but like, do you put stuff in the calendar a certain way, like the verbiage that you use or the way you frame it for your own mind?
Yeah, just to give you an idea, I have no more than 20 hours a week of work, and I have 72 hours a week of family time. And so that's how I would start. It's blocked off. My life in the morning does not start. Now, that doesn't mean that if I'm having a podcast in Australia or Africa, that I'm waking up periodically and doing that when I would normally have family time. But in general, my calendar doesn't open until 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, and it closes at 5. That's it.
Right.
And so if you want to be on that calendar from a professional standpoint, that's where you're going to fit it in. And by the way, yeah, maybe I will make an exception from time to time, but I've created a situation where the far balance of what I'm doing is what I'm choosing to do. And those activities that I think are moving me, my relationships, my family, my body forward. And so the types of things that are on there are very simple. In the morning, I spend time with my wife and daughter, Donna and Lucy. And then I go to the gym for about 2.5 hours. I come home, shower, have a lunch, and then my calendar starts. That's where, you know, we're doing things like recording podcasts, we're recording social media stuff, we're you know, having coaching calls or going through cohorts. I'm also, as you alluded to earlier, I believe in what Scott Ferguson calls the plus equals minus philosophy, which is plus, I have somebody in my life that I look up to and hold myself accountable to, a mentor or a group. I have a group equals that are peers, that I like a mastermind or a professional organization, and then I have a minus, and that's not a negative term. It's just somebody that is further behind me on the path that I'm helping move forward. And so I actually have those 3 things in my life, and I think they're instrumental in keeping me in growth. Because people like us, Hersh, like you and I, that think about things deeply and we're seekers and we've found some success, it can be really easy for us to like jujitsu our way into not growing anymore, because it's almost like we've got it figured out. But the truth is, by having that plus equals minus, there's always a reason for you to be a little bit uncomfortable in pursuing growth. And so that's built into my calendar as well. And like I said, you know, it's people think that they have to do things, but ultimately in the short term, maybe you do, but over the course of time, just by simply setting up boundaries that are for you and your life, you know, you very quickly will be living the way that you want to live. Whether that means you're homeless or whether that means you're wealthy, well, that's all about what you're choosing to do.
What really intrigues me about you is this kind of this ambitious serenity, in a way that you have you're real laid back, but you're doing stuff, and I wonder, like, is that a coachable thing, or is it just is there a point at which you say, yeah, you know, this works for me, right? I have the mind, I can chill out and I can do my, my family time and start my work at 1. Does it work? Is it a coachable thing, or is it just you?
That's a great question, because ultimately I think you have to decide to accept and adapt to coaching. And so what I can tell you is that my personality is the combination, and this isn't I am the combination of the 5 people I spend the most time with, but I can tell you there are words that I say certain ways, there's attitudes I take about life, there's ways that I overcome certain types of struggles that I can tell you the name of the man or woman who I learned that from. Whether it's my Sergeant Andrew Houghton, God rest his soul, he recently passed away. Whether it's him, that's my bro culture. That's who you hear if you're in the gym with me and I'm pumping people up and clapping my hands. Whether it's my great friend Martin Rawlsmean and the way that he leads his team, he's the smartest guy in the room, and I've never seen him treat any employee or any waitress or anybody with anger or with putting people down. And he certainly could, because he's usually correcting people's mistakes. Or whether it's my other good friend, Angelo Cisco, his whole thing is called Alpha Hippie. You should meet Angelo. You talk about the serenity with ambition, Alpha Hippie. Here's a CrossFit guy with a deep voice, real good, powerful presence, really fit. And loves every human being he comes in contact with. And it's this idea of being, there is strength. And from strength, we can choose to take advantage of people, or we can choose to help people and give back to people and make people feel loved and welcome in a room. And that to me is a very worthy endeavor. So if you're asking, can I pass this on to somebody? Hang out with me, hang out with Angelo, hang out with Martin. And pretty quickly you'll see, it's like when you join a great gym. You join a great CrossFit gym and you want to go out. You're a young person. You're in your 20s. We're all going out, but we're not slamming beers necessarily. We're not eating Chicago style pizza. So there's this thing where you surround yourself with people where the virtuous thing and the cool thing are the same thing, right? You spend time with stand-up comedians. There's a culture to that. And so you're going to be much funnier in 6 months. Now you may have an unhealthy lifestyle, but you're going to be a hell of a lot funnier, right? And so what I would say is surround yourself with people that you aspire to be like, with people who are aspiring to be similar to you, or maybe even people that are aspiring to be like what they view you as now. You'll be surprised how quickly you live up to somebody else's impression of you.
That's a great point, Jason. I mean, the idea of both, you have to be ready for it, I think, is my caveat. You have to be ready for that, because some people dip their toe in a good habit, which is great. We all start somewhere. Not everybody commits, full throttle to everything in their life at once.
Certainly.
But so you got to be ready for it. But when you are ready for that group of people that are, and probably within that group there are people like you described. There are people ahead of you, people behind you, people exactly on at your place.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right that you're gonna experience fun in a way that is aligned with your other goals that you're pursuing, at the same time, and so I can see that. I can see that. I think that I was thinking about this recently, that my son's trying to figure out where does he want to live? Does he he's grown up in LA and in New Jersey, and he is comfortable in New Jersey, and his mom's still in New Jersey, and it's like, I'm in Iowa, so I'm I'm transient, in the sense that we don't know where we're going to go after Iowa. We know we're going to make a move in the next couple of years, but we don't know where. And also for us, the kids are all over the place. Oh, you're telling me? Are you telling me?
Come on out. Yeah, I would love to have you, man. We're starting a revolution out here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not far.
No.
You're
you
not
should come
that
visit.
far.
I'd love to have you.
Well, I definitely should come visit. Thank you. But my point was that, I feel like my people are not all in one place. My people are all over. I always wondered, why is this neighborhood not, where are my people? And then you find your person, you find a person in the neighborhood, but they're that one person in that neighborhood, and they found you and you found them, but that neighborhood isn't, necessarily your people. And so now I've realized, no, I found my people, and I continue to find my people. They're just not all in one place. The community isn't a geographical, definition. There's something to that maybe in your, as we always think about branding, we always think about promoting and growing. There is something about the community being, it's not even figurative. It's just not geographical, about it not being geographical.
I couldn't agree more. I literally came out of a float tank one day thinking I was going to write that book, which is sort of like, why do you live where you are? Like, why are you where you are? If you imagine everybody, hypothetically coming over, through Ellis Island or whatever, like, why did your people stop there on a macro level? And then on a micro level, like, why are you in Iowa or in LA or wherever? Because I moved from Chicago to the Indiana Dunes, and the Indiana Dunes, I feel a little bit like a sliver in the finger of my community. I don't feel myself reflected in many of the places around. I don't see a ton of entrepreneurs. I don't see a ton of fast-paced, movers. There aren't people that are doing some of the stuff that I'm doing. You need a checkbook if you're going to live where I live. And if that makes any sense, you need a checkbook, and you schedule things on pencil and paper, and you send things through the mail. And so it's like, that's one of those things where at first I felt like a sliver in the finger of my environment. I felt like I was being slowly rejected. And at first I was like, oh, I'm going to help these entrepreneurs and I'm going to do this. And then I realized, no. These people want it this way. I'm the one that's raging against it. And so what I ultimately decided was I'm going to have to find outlets where there are these things. And like you alluded to, it's not geographic. It's podcasting and coaching and talking to versions of me who grew up in Maine or Maryland or Texas or Portland, Oregon, which has been a really eye-opening experience because I see all the different opinions expressed from someone who was very much like me when you talk about the recipe. And then the second thing I did was I joined a local gym, a local tribal community. In this case, it's kickboxing and jiu-jitsu, but it certainly could have been hot yoga or cycling and spin or CrossFit or whatever else, because those folks go do something really hard with a group of people that are there to do the same thing and try not to develop deep bonds. The men in my life who end conversations with "I love you, brother" almost exclusively come from places where we try to kill each other on the mat.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny because I don't have that that ferocity in the gym. Like I do kickboxing, but I'm not sparring kickboxing.
Yeah.
I'm doing like circuit kind of kickboxing. Gentle.
But it's hard. It's hard, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking today as I was doing my version of round kicks, I was thinking, I don't know if that would even clear Jean-Claude Van Damme's balls.
Well, that's probably what you're aiming for.
I don't know. I mean, like if I'm supposed to do that thing
Yeah.
where I come within an inch of his forehead, I don't know that I don't know but I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm trying to get that extension. I'm trying to get better, but I don't have that ferocity thing about, you're trying to kill each other on the mat. But I do have that "I love you, man" thing where I have always felt that closeness to the people that I really care about. Although it's interesting because not everybody has that. Not everybody's comfortable with that.
The more explicit it is, I think typically it's just a function of maturity, but also a little bit of personality. Yeah, certainly there's people that I don't say that to that I love. To your point earlier about kickboxing, some of the biggest parts of my community at my gym that I've owned for 12 years, some of the biggest parts of that are not athletically gifted people. They're people that believe in living towards an ethic. And so I don't care if your roundhouse kicks me in the face, the balls, or the shins, the fact that you're there and the fact that you're doing the thing. So you think of the Vitruvian Man, right? You think of Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, or I think Socrates or Plato had like this idea of a virtuous man or woman, right? Mm-hmm. And you think about what that person does. That's your ethic. That's the ethic you uphold, okay? And then your actions are what you're doing. Are you behaving like someone who upholds that ethic? The people that I respect are behaving in accordance with their ethic. And the people who aren't suffer from what's called dissonance. That's the difference between the ethic and the behavior. And so if I say I identify as a long distance cyclist and how I do that is by living on my couch eating pizza every night, well, I'm probably not going to be super happy with myself because I'm lying to myself every single day about what my identity is. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so I'm agnostic. Either uphold the ethic of the couch potato and then love yourself for it, which I don't choose to do, or get the hell off the couch and get on a bike.
Yeah. You may actually have the ethic. You're just not living it. In other words, you know which ethic you want to pursue. You know which ethic you want to embrace, and you're getting in your own way, or you're just, you're just afraid, man. The good news about doing things that are a little scary is that once you do them, it's like kids that go on a roller coaster or whatever. Once they get over that thing, they come right off and they go right back up that ladder. They can't wait to do it again, or to even up the ante, you know?
Yeah, and to your point, look at you. You're living the ethic of a good podcaster, of somebody who has a brand that they actually authentically identify with. What's the first thing I told you when I got on the call with you? I love your background. What's the first thing you did with me? You told me to man up and fix my audio over here because you're behaving like a professional. You know, and that to me is so much more important than actually whether or not you ever have 1 million followers or anybody does anything for you or ever you get traction at the result. That's not something you can control. What you can control is the ethic that you live up to every single day. And like, I look at the picture on my screen right now and I go, that guy's a professional podcaster. Like, that's a guy I want to talk to. If I want to go on a podcast, I want to be on his. And I want to hear what you have to say about branding and what is a brand and all that type of stuff that maybe I give some side thought, but it's not my whole existence, right? And not to say it's yours. I'm just saying, like, you're a professional at that. And so I guess this is my ham-fisted way of turning the tables on you and saying, like, you know, what is branding to you? What does a brand mean to you? Because I would love to know, you know, and am I on the right path?
So thank you for that. And thank you for the segue also into this conversation, because this is what I am passionate about it. I do believe that truth is at the core of every great brand. There is a truth that the person who's starting this brand or launched this brand has come in touch with. And now it's about, how do I convey it? And I tell people it's much easier to sell the truth than it is to come up with some bullshit story that is just not going to be ultimately valuable to anyone. Think about it that way. Don't think about, can I get, you know, even with the best of intentions, saying, can I sell this thing? I have to sell this thing. I have to take care of my family. I want this to succeed. I have to figure out a way to spin this so that people appreciate it and it's good for them. But it's out. Let's say it's a healthy food, and I got to spin it. I got to spin it so that they think it tastes good, so that they do what's good for them and they have this healthy food, which they know they want anyway. But you're still bullshitting them. You just have to come out with the truth. And I think where it comes from is that as a young person, if there was something that I needed to do, I'll use this example. I had a hernia and I was 12 years old, and I went with my dad to the doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, it's a hernia. That's what you're feeling. We should operate on it. And, you know, but it's not like, it's not going to kill you. You're going to feel this thing. It's popping in and out, you know, the hernia and, you know, whatever. So, and I was like, oh, well, I want to get it taken care of. I want to get it taken care of today if I can. And he goes, all right, we'll do it tomorrow morning. We'll get you in the hospital tonight and we'll be done. And it's like, that's how I operate, because if I know something to be true, I have to deal with it. That doesn't mean that I've fixed every problem, but it means that I have begun the journey of addressing every problem, because I know that I got to do something about it. You know, we got to do it. Should be the same way with a brand. I know this is a great product. I know this is a great service. I believe in it. I've worked out the resistance and the problems and the things that people might not like about it. I've confronted them. This I will change. This I won't. And this is me. You know, this is the ABCs of my brand.
Yeah.
And you would be amazed how not only are you saving yourself money because you're not going through a bullshit process of just trying to convince people, because if you're convinced, you are done, man. Yeah. You have done it. You have succeeded. So in other words, if you, Jason, have come upon Spear and Clover and the meaning that it holds for you, you don't have to sell this thing ever. You really don't. You don't have to sell it to anyone. And that's one of the reasons why I love talking to CEOs and founders, because the company isn't so big that there's a marketing director and a VP of marketing. And I do that. I do work with brands and sit down with everybody on the chain one-on-one, which I would rather do than address the audience of the entire organization. I would do that last, after I've met with all of the heads of all the departments and as many people as the CEO wants me to meet with, one-on-one, to figure out who their brand really is and what they can do to make internally and externally make the message clear. But on a show like this, I want to talk to the person behind the brand, because they'll get this. And if you're a VP of marketing for someone else's brand and you're struggling with this and you're listening, you may need to have a conversation with the founder and say, hey, I want to hear from you a little more about, what drives you, and not what is the tagline and what is the thing and what do we sell. I know all that. That's how I got the job. I mean, what happened this morning that you weren't gonna show up and you showed up anyway? You don't have to. The company's making enough money. Like, why did you show up today versus yesterday versus tomorrow? Why are you showing up? And have that real conversation, because the great ideas, the great creative ideas are all in there. They're all in there. That's my favorite thing. That's why when we started talking about geography, I said maybe there's something to it, because for me what resonated was, yeah, I do kind of want to come to your place, and kind of check it out and see what that does and see what that feels like. But your place here is also, what I'm responding to. And so if you wanted to, and this is the next question that I want to ask you, if I've answered your question,
this is helpful. Super. And I have some thoughts about it, but ask your question.
Well, so I want to hear from you, Jason, now that we've gotten through the why, and we've talked about what motivates you, and we've talked about what you do and how you do it. Now the question is, who needs to hear it that hasn't heard it yet? And again, we're not worried about selling you. We're worried about sharing you, and you, like I was just thinking, I don't want 1 million followers when you said 1 million followers, but I would like 1 million friends. That would be pretty cool.
That would be so cool.
Like, that would be pretty cool to feel like, I'm actually doing something for 1 million people, and 1 million people actually feel like I'm doing something for them, and they feel like they are connected to me, and I'm their friend and they're my friend. That I could use, but 1 million people that are following, quote unquote, or just, like in a line behind me, amassed behind me, just scares me. That kind of thing. Scares me about anybody.
So I made a reel about 3 months ago, and the world rejected it. I'm just going to say that first. They didn't like it. Maybe it was the algorithm, maybe it was the world, but I didn't get a lot of love. Yeah. But I made a reel because I had this idea. A lot of people love art. Very few people buy paintbrushes. A lot of people love watching a championship fight. Very few people strap on gloves. A lot of people love music. Very few people buy instruments. If you're asking who my people are paintbrush people. They're the people that own fucking paintbrushes.
Love it. Love that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, that's who they are. They're the people that when I was a kid, I loved snowboarding. I worked at a snowboarding hill. I loved clothes. I worked at the mall. I liked cars. I worked at the shop. I've always pursued my passions. And so whether that's ADD or entrepreneur's disease or whatever you call it, what I've learned, unfortunately it took me a while, was to shepherd my attention towards those things that are virtuous, the things that I would already want to do, the things that I would love to do. And so if you're out there listening to this and you have a strong passion, but you can't put it together to get to the next level, well, that's what I do. but it's, and I've been blessed to have the time to think about the machinations of doing it. I have been blessed to have tried to be a financial analyst, which means I'm great in Excel and I'm great at troubleshooting. I've been blessed to be in the military where I had to solve problems at a very high level that were very difficult. And so those things that I've picked up along the way mean that I just have a couple of extra tools that maybe your average passionate entrepreneur wouldn't have. And I've spent $250,000 on personal development. So that helps too. And so, when you talk about, brand there, the thing that I thought was a good brand matches the ethic of the potential buyer. And a great brand maybe inspires them to improve their behavior as well towards that ethic. Right. And so you think about, like, when I think of good brands, I don't know if you agree or not, but when I think of good brands, the two that come to mind for me are the two that come to mind are Liquid Death. I think crushes. I think I don't know who the owner of Liquid Death is. I don't know who came up with it. I bet you he's pretty cool, or she. Right? Yeah. There's another one that's called Go Fast, Don't Die. And it's just this guy that travels around on an old Indian motorcycle, and they have like meetups and all this other stuff. I don't own a motorcycle. Thank God. I would have never made it this long if I did, but I buy those clothes because man, it's this ethic that I believe in and that I wish I could uphold. And I look at those and it's like, it's easy for him. Why? Because he's not even thinking about it. He's out there on a freaking motorcycle. Right. Great music. Coulter Wall. Coulter Wall's this old timey, kind of sounds like Johnny Cash, old timey country music guy. I'm not even a big country music fan. But you know what's great about Coulter Wall? Rogan was how I found out about him. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan tried to have him on the show, and his publicist was like, he's moving cattle for the next 9 months. You can talk to him in September. And I'm like, that's why his music is so good, because he's actually living the ethic he's singing about. And so to me, it's like, I use this word capital T, truth. It's why I like the things that I like. It's why I like jujitsu. Because if your thing works and mine doesn't, we find out very quickly. It's truth. And so there's no room for bullshit in kickboxing, in jujitsu, in CrossFit, in stand-up comedy. Is it funny? Did they laugh? Right. Okay, cool. Then say that, To me,
thing about comedy, by the way, not to interrupt you, but the thing that I love about stand-up comedy is that you will come off the stage, and first of all, it's possible that you kill and then you're still not satisfied, and you especially for comedians that are extremely well known and people love them, and they lose that barometer because they're going to get the laughs anyway. But the comedian comes off stage and they want to be honest with you about what happened. They're not going to say, let's say you didn't see them, and how was your set? Oh, it was awesome. That's not part of the culture. The culture isn't bullshit. The culture is not sales. The culture isn't a salesmanship culture. It does them no good to tell you that they did well when they didn't. If anything, they want to tell you what was wrong with it so that you could possibly help them fix it, and vice versa. And so I love that. I love that idea, that immediacy, first of all. You don't have to wait. And the honesty. Because it's your worst fear, let's say, and you've confronted it. And it may not be pretty. I mean, you may still have work to do. Most likely you do. But at least you're getting that honest diagnosis from the doctor, and you probably want to fix it as soon as you can possibly do it. So that same principle probably I brought into stand-up, which was, okay, tell it to me straight, and then let me get the surgery tonight. Let me get that surgery tonight.
That's funny.
I don't know if I want them shaving my balls the way they do in the hospital, but the audience has their own version of shaving your balls. It's not quite as safe.
At least light a candle, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So where were we? Because I interrupted you.
No, you're good. I think ultimately, if I'm listening to this at home, like the first thing I'm thinking, man, these guys are talking. We're talking. We're having a conversation. Yeah. And I think a lot of times you don't get that. And so I appreciate you. I see you, man. I appreciate you and the show you're putting together. So if you've made it this far and you're listening, do Hersh a favor and go like this podcast, share it with somebody else, and subscribe, because this is a conversation that I believe is probably not uncommon on this show. I've talked to you now twice, and I think we've had two great conversations. From my perspective, look, and maybe this is where we get back on track here a little bit, is like, if you're out there thinking about brand or thinking about a business or just coming up with what your mission is going to be or how you want to live, whatever that is, maybe start from the other side of it. And this is how I came up with this business. The name already existed, but the business wasn't, what do I want to sell? It wasn't, how can I make money? It wasn't, how can I build tribe even? All those things are important. What it was, what would I stand on a mountain and beat my chest about and fight for? Because I don't like sales, to your point, Hersh. Yeah. I don't like telling you, you should like this. Fuck that, man. Like, I want to do a thing. And if you want it, here's a good example. I'm not persistent. If I ever asked a girl out and she wasn't attracted to me, dead. I'm not even attracted to her anymore. Because if you're not attracted to me, what the fuck, what are we doing? And so the same thing with the brand is like, I'm not going to sell you on anything, but dude, if you're into this, or dudette, if you're into this, get on, because we're going for a ride. So to me, it was much more about, what would I fight for? And then let's fill in the blanks in reverse from there. That's easy. Like, what would I fight for? What would I fight for? Core values, mission statement, understanding where you want to go, understanding the mountain you want to climb, scaling the stuff between your brain out to your team. Do that with SOPs and with training and with finding people that are core value fits for your company. And then flow. I'm a stats guy. I want to know exactly the number that I need to follow that represents my business's heartbeat and its pulse. If we can do those things together, man, that's easy. That's not hard. It's literally just me asking you the questions. And to your point about it earlier, most people know what the questions or the things that they need to solve or whatever that might be. I would just challenge people, maybe you're not able to answer the biggest questions in your life today, but stop lying to yourself about the little ones. And pretty quickly you'll see that grow, your ability to overcome things. So for example, your business, your life, your family, your relationships is asking you questions, asking you challenges and questions of you every single day. And if you lie about the little ones to yourself, how on earth can I expect you to step up and overcome big challenges? And so start with like, hey man, how do I feel about the guy I see in the mirror or the gal? And if that's not good, don't pave it over. Open the hood. Let's see what's wrong. How can we fix that? What are you not happy about? Is it the way you behave? Is it the way you treat people? Is it, how you go about energizing the roles in your life or your relationships or your job? Is it physical? Do you not feel good anymore being inside this body? If you don't, let's go. Let's change it. Whatever that means. We have the answers. We just have to be willing to address the questions.
If I sit down with you and you give me some of the best advice ever, the reason it's the best advice ever is because I get it. I understand it and I know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. Very likely, I knew that before we talked. I just I wasn't accessing it. I wasn't open to it. I wasn't letting myself see it that way. If someone gives you advice and you go, well, that's a crock of shit. Well, probably it's not the advice for you.
Right.
Is it? But if you go, yeah, dude, I love that. I totally love that. Well, most likely, yeah, you didn't see it. You didn't see it necessarily from Jason's point of view before, but you know good advice when you hear it. Mm. So the converse is, how do you know not to follow advice? Because it sounds like stupid advice to you. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's pretty basic, but I think that's true. So how do you know if it's bad branding? Because it sounds like bad branding to you. How do you know if it's fake? Because it sounds fake.
Yeah. And I would also say, this is something I see all the time, not to jump in here, but like when I do core values with people and they want to pair it back to me, McDonald's or Apple or Ford's core values, I'm like, oh, you haven't done the work and taken the time to actually consider your actual core, like freaking core value. And same thing here. It's like, if I ask you, hey, like, what should I do to get by? This is something, and by the way, I'm guilty of it too. I'm not saying this is like an ultimate thing. And certainly I'm sure you've done this as well. But if I'm speaking in platitudes and cliches, it doesn't make them not true. It means I'm lazy intellectually. It means that I haven't taken the time to consider my own beliefs on these things and to create a world in which I can say them to you in my own perspective. So grow or die. Is that true? Absolutely, that's true. If we're not growing, we're slowly dying. We're sinking into the abyss, right? If I just say grow or die to somebody, or trial by fire, or, it takes one to know one, it's like, okay, cool. So that's a thing where I get to shut my brain off for a second, think about something else, and then we move on with the rest of our life in the momentum we were currently in. I am not interested in conversations that do not alter my path in this world. I am only interested in conversations that I get something from, that I give something to, and I move forward with a new understanding of whatever it is that we discussed. If you're not trying to do that, you're missing out.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate multiple choice, questionnaires because they're so easy. Doesn't mean I get them all right. I'm not any kind of genius when it comes to test taking, but I just love the essay question. And, that's like if you would say, well, who should listen to this show? It would be people who are interested in essay questions or like to answer essay questions, as opposed to people who just want to know what the right answer is. If you just want to know whether it's A, B, or C, then I'm probably not the flavor for you. D is my favorite. D is always my favorite. All of the above, because you could then explain why, or none of the above. Those are great. What do you think?
Yeah.
That would be the multiple choice that I would like to answer. They would say A, San Francisco, B, the Dominican Republic,
Yeah.
C, the Congo, or D, what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I would get in trouble in school for that exact reason. I'd be like, well, technically, if this is the case, then that's not right. I know that's the answer you want me to pick, but technically that could be wrong. I was so concerned about that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's funny. That's
Guilty
a really
with an
interesting
explanation.
thing. Yeah,
That's another, I'm not an attorney, but if I had gone down that route, that would be like, that would be one of my favorite things, guilty with an explanation. Because normally it's like, what you did it or you didn't, in or out, guilty or not guilty or not guilty. You remember, what's it called, with Ralph Macchio and Joe Pesci?
Yeah. Great movie.
My Cousin Vinny.
My Cousin Vinny, yeah.
My Cousin Vinny and Fred Gwynn, plays the judge.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't want to hear argument or opinion. I just want to hear two words. Guilty.
That's a good impression.
Or not guilty. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good impression.
I think I get the picture. I don't think you do.
I'm going to have to rewatch that, man. That was a good one.
Well, we can either come up on hour 2, or we can wrap this segment up. If we're going to do that, which I think we should, because it would be disrespectful of your time for me to indefinitely. But definitely, I would like to turn it over to you for any message you want to share with the audience, any goodness you want to just infuse. This is being recorded right before Thanksgiving. And it won't be heard before Thanksgiving, but it will be heard shortly thereafter. This is going to all launch very soon. So, what do you tell my people? What do you say to our people?
Well, again, thank you, Hersh, and thank you for what you've built, this platform, right? I mean, I've been on a number of shows. I put one together, and so game recognized game. It takes one to know one, to use the platitude. And I just say that if you're out there listening to this, you should appreciate the free content that Hersh is putting out, because it's thoughtful, it's genuine, it's unique, and certainly you'll get value from it. If we're talking about Thanksgiving, shout out to all my folks celebrating Thanksgiving. The thing that makes me think about is something that I learned in the Army and in sports and in CrossFit and in all the stuff that I've done since, is your situation is not fixed. You're not a fixed thing. You should be evolving. And so from a Thanksgiving perspective, if you love your family, if you enjoy spending time with your family, that's great. If you don't, I feel for you, but you can change that. And even if you love your family, there's family you're born with and there's family that you choose. Go out and choose to surround yourself with a family of people that have similar goals, that are doing something in the world, that are solving problems, that are working up a mountain. I don't even care which mountain, but they're working towards something, especially if they're doing it together and in goodness and in serving people. And so if we're thinking about what I'm thankful for, I've said this for years, and every year I feel like I was kidding the year before. But I'm thankful for the struggle, Hersh, because without the struggle, I would not have the perspective that I have today. I wouldn't have the resources that I have today. I wouldn't have the relationships that I have today. And I wouldn't know that whatever comes tomorrow, I can deal with it. And so be thankful for the struggle if you can. I'm still ingredients working my way towards genuine. I always say, like, if you're in a car, there's 3 phases. There's the phase where you're driving and somebody cuts you off and you either yell at them or you even stop and maybe fight them on the side of the street, which I've actually done as a child. There's phase 2 where you're like, I'm evolved, and they cut you off and you get really mad and you flip them off and then you go, it's no big deal, and you go back to your day. And then there's phase 3, and this is where I'm at now, Hersh, where I'm like driving home hoping somebody cuts me off so that we both get a great story out of it. You see what I mean? And I skip the yelling and go straight to the, hey, yeah, you're going to tell your wife how much of an asshole I was. And that's great because now a story was born. And so, that's all I really have to share is just go out and do stuff. Go out and surround yourself with people that inspire you and certainly be thankful for the struggle.
Yeah. And if you don't want to visit your family, find your family.
Find somebody else. Yeah, that's fine.
Find another family. And to your point, an analogy about the people cutting you off. Think about this. Ruminate on this over the holiday. There is no universal symbol for sorry. Right? So when someone cuts you off, they may, if you assume the best, assume that there just is not a symbol. There isn't. You can go like this, but people could think you're being facetious. Or like if you go like this, they don't know that you throw up your hands. They don't know you.
Yeah.
There is no, like, I don't know how you do sorry in sign language, but we should teach it to everybody. Teach it to every driver. Put it on every driving exam. How do you say sorry in sign language? Right?
I think this is diaper change. This is the only one I know.
Diaper change.
Yeah.
So see, there's so much room for misunderstanding.
There you go.
We think we're saying sorry. We're really saying diaper change. And it's not that the other driver doesn't know sign language. They do. They go, he just said I'm full of shit.
Yeah.
That guy just said I'm full of shit.
Oh, where can we go from there, Hersh? I think we did it.
We can wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and?
it worked for you,
Yes, then?
subscribe and leave a
Yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.
Yes.